All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome. Another exciting daily vlog. This is the daily vlog 2025, number 288. And today, we've got to talk about what I believe is one of the biggest missed opportunities Critical Role has ever had. However, the first thing I need to talk about is, have you guys picked up The Hearth Witch's Guide to Magic and Murder by USA Today best-selling author Kiri Callaghan? She made the USA Today bestsellers list, which is massive. It's national bestsellers list, not like, USA Today, independent bestseller list or USA Today, fantasy bestseller. No, the USA Today bestsellers list. Kiri Callaghan, best-selling author, amazing. I don't know how long I'm going to keep plugging her book, but I'm like super thrilled about this because I know a best-selling author. And the book is really cool, and Kiri's an awesome person, and she's a phenomenal author, and so we want to see many, many more amazing things for her. So go pick up her book. There will be links in the description down below. That being said, I needed to drink water. All right, let's talk about how Critical Role screwed up. So, and I think I made a video talking about this topic, though not quite in this kind of detail, when it first was happening. But what I'm talking about, for anyone that's like, well, what was it? So, years and years ago, Critical Role announced that the last Thursday of every month, they were just not going to be doing a new Critical Role episode to give themselves time to relax. One of the things that they mentioned that might happen on that Thursday night off is they would feature something else. And I think a lot of people at that time, because this is long before Daggerheart. I think Candela Obscura might have either been announced or been out by then, but Daggerheart wasn't a the thing at that point. But something that Critical Role had become more and more known for was these sponsored TTRPG games, of which the first one that they ever did was Open Legend or Feast of Legend for Wendy's. And a couple activists got really butthurt about tomatoes and made them take it down. But it was amazing. And you guys can, all the other amazing one-shots that they've done, you can thank Wendy's for that because they were the first. Anyway, so they announced this thing, and since then, they have stuck to their guns on that. The last Thursday of every month, Critical Role does not run programming. However, they haven't really consistently filled that Thursday night time slot. A lot of times it's just empty. Sometimes it's live shows that they did that they haven't broadcast yet, which is another thing that I'm less than thrilled about. But I think they missed a really rare opportunity to do something that not only would have helped the Critical Role brand, though it would have been an expensive help, let's say. It would have helped their image. I'm not sure they would have really made any money off of this. But it definitely would have helped their image, which eventually can lead to monetary gain. But the other thing it would have done is it would have massively injected life into the live play community that's kind of been slowly dying. Like, don't get me wrong, Critical Role was one of the reasons we had this massive boom of live play shows. Like, everybody had a live play. It Me JP, who just recently came back, had an entire channel that was nothing but live plays, which is where we got the unfortunate situation with Far Verona, If you're not familiar with that one, that's a whole story in and of itself, but it involved Adam Koebel never being allowed in the space ever again. And again, Wizards of the Coast had their own official, had a couple actually, but they had Dice Camera Action that was DM'd by Chris Perkins, and it was phenomenally amazing. There was the Black Dice Society, you know, Dimension 20 kind of got its start around that time. Like, we had all of these live play shows, and now 10 years later, we really don't have that many like high quality professional. Oh, and we also had things like Hyper RPG that was doing amazing things as well. That went as far as, you know, actually partnering with AMC to produce a season of Kolak, which was their kind of surrealist sci-fi horror show. So yeah, we had this huge boom in live plays, and now if you want to watch a live play that isn't Critical Role, there's quite a few out there, but they tend to be for very low viewership, and the quality just isn't there. Like, we're not getting another Critical Role. To be perfectly honest, we're not getting another Critical Role imitator, much less another Critical Role. Like, no one is ever going to be the quote unquote next Critical Role. We are never going to get another thing like Critical Role. But there used to be people that were imitating them and doing a pretty damn good job. And that's just not really a thing anymore. And I think a lot of it has to do with fatigue, first of all. Again, there were tons and tons of them. And then we just started finding out over and over again that a lot of the people involved in these productions were just absolute dumpster fires of people. I mean, the whole Satine Phoenix thing, Adam Koebel, the new controversy that is playing its way through court right now, involving Sage Ryan. Like the TTRPG live play community seemed to have attracted a bunch of just extremely predatory people. So that hurt massively. But then we also just, I mean, in the same way that, you know, battle royales were everywhere like 5 years ago, and now they're really not. Or you go back 10 years ago, everything was a MOBA. There was every single thing. There was a Lord of the Rings MOBA, and it wasn't half bad. But everything had a MOBA, and now it's really not. Go back to the 90s, everything had a 2D fighting game. You know, we see these trends. But what I want to get back to Critical Role is something that Critical Role could have done, and technically still could do. There's nothing stopping them from doing this other than the massive amount of work that would be required to implement it. What they could have done with that last Thursday night slot is, instead of reserving it basically for marketing or bleeding off stuff that they didn't have another time that they could air it, they could have used it to spotlight independent groups. Basically, the fourth Thursday of every month would be effectively indie night. A new or returning group would do a self-contained one-shot using whatever system they wanted, using whatever method they wanted. It could be a live in-person live play. It could be an online live play. They could use a virtual tabletop. They could use just Zoom, whatever. But it would have allowed, first of all, anyone showing up on Critical Role's Twitch channel would have seen a massive boost in viewership. Even if they only converted like 1% of the people watching Critical Role to their channel, for most live play shows, like if I remember correctly, I was in the top, I want to say like 10% of TTRPG streamers last year, the year before. I was looking at my numbers, and I was in like the top, like, I can't remember if it was 10% or 5% of D&D streamers, because I regularly get between 4 and 8 viewers on my stream. And every so often, I will get double digits. If I get rated or something like that, I get double digit views. That puts me in the upper echelon of D&D streamers. The vast majority are streaming to one or two people. And so even if only 2,000 people were watching, because the stuff that doesn't have the Critical Role cast in it doesn't pull the 40,000 viewer audience or anything like that. If you get 2,000 to 3,000 people, it's a good night. But 1% of that, so 1% of 2,000 would be 20. 1% would be easily 1,000% increase for most of these channels. And that might be all that they need to be able to actually create a place. So Critical Role had and still has, technically, there's nothing that's stopping them from doing this. Critical Role has the opportunity to inject some lifeblood into an industry that is dying massively right now. Finding really good live plays is really hard. And it's upsetting because I remember during the glory age of live plays, like you literally any night of the week, you could go on Twitch and find somebody playing something fun. I remember Dodger, Thorne, that's her name. I could not remember her married name now. Dodger Thorne. She used to be, she used to just be Dodger. But she worked on Polaris and hosted like everything on the there. And she had a news show, and she used to be on the Co-op Show podcast with Jesse Cox and Cynic Brit. What was his name? John Bain. Total Biscuit. Rest in peace. I miss him so much. He was such an awesome dude. She was on quite a few different really awesome ones. I remember Mirror Shades was one that I thought was really, really cool. If I remember correctly, Mirror Shades was, I think it was a Shadowrun game. It was super cool. She did a bunch of stuff with Hit Me JP. She's on a live play now that I never get a chance to see because I can never remember when it airs. But she was on a bunch of different ones. Hit Me JP and I think it was called Roleplay, ROLL Play, was an entire kind of Twitch channel that's just dedicated to making these live plays. Again, I submitted a live play idea to, it might have been Roleplay or it might have been one of the other bigger companies to try and run, I think it was like an 8-session live play, because they would schedule you for a set number of sessions. And it was a really, really cool time. And now, like, you can still go to Twitch and find tons and tons and tons, but the quality is relatively low. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when Critical Role first got big, and then we started seeing other things like Hyper RPG, Roleplay, and a few of the other ones that just created these really, really great shows. Who was it? Mark Holmes. He had one too that may still be going on. I can't actually remember. But there were these really nice, high quality shows, and so everybody was trying to kind of imitate those kind of shows, and then like Dice Camera Action and all that. Everyone was trying to imitate those, and as they dropped off more and more, people stopped trying to imitate anything, and they stopped having kind of a target to aim at, because again, everybody knows you're never going to be Critical Role. That's just not something that's possible. And so people stopped trying to create kind of, quote, high quality ones, and they just like will turn a camera on, and sometimes they will have an overlay. Half the times they buy the overlay, because you can buy pre-made TTRPG overlays that are very, very nice. But a lot of people don't go through the work and effort to actually create a really high quality show. It's one of the reasons why I'm so kind of proud and honored to work with Zelda Universe, because right from the get-go for Realms of the Wild, we had a custom overlay created by Elias Thompson, who plays one of the characters on the show and is one of the producers for it, and used to run the entire Twitch channel for ZU. And we have professional art done for it. Tears of the Realms, our second campaign, I'm going to try this again. He again went and created a custom overlay, not just for Tears of the Realms, but for the entire Twitch channel. Everybody on the Twitch channel has an overlay with all the same kind of art and everything on it, so that the Twitch channel seem the same. Like, it's a really, really high quality production. Then they have a dipshit like me running it, and it ruins everything. But you just don't really see that very often. Like, ItMeJP is finally coming back, and the stuff that he's doing seems to be kind of the same kind of quality that it was doing. If anyone is wondering, ItMeJP was the dude that ran Roleplay, which was the company that employed Adam Koebel. Which, again, I mentioned before, he did some bad stuff and now doesn't exist in the TTRPG space because of how bad it was. And after that, ItMeJP kind of disappeared from the space for a long time. And he's coming back now without Adam Koebel, thank God, and doing cool stuff again. But so anyway, getting back to Critical Role, in order for this to have been a success, first of all, there would have had to have been a staff position created whose sole purpose was that independent stream. Like, their job was just to find people to do that stream, to schedule people to do that stream, to ensure the quality of that stream. And as it got more popular, it probably would have had to have been a small team that their entire purpose was to just do that stream. Which, again, would have been a job in and of itself. Especially since Critical Role, being a private company, would not have been able to accept people doing work for them without paying them. And so the person that was running that thing would have to find ways for it to be financially viable. So they would have to line up, or they'd have to work with the marketing team to line up sponsors for those streams specifically, find other ways to monetize it, because they would have to pay these people in some way, shape, or form. Now, there are ways to pay people legally without having to actually fork over money. Like, you can be paid in services and other things like that. Like, that's a completely legal thing. But in order to do that 100% legally, you actually have to have someone that understands the laws behind that. So, would it have been easy? Absolutely not. In any way, shape, or form. This would have been a full-time job for at least one person, preferably multiple people. But what that would have done is, the first thing Critical Role would have had to do is, okay, we have guidelines. We're not going to let somebody show up on the stream with, like, really bad audio, that they're just using, like, headset mics over, like, a Discord call. That wouldn't be allowed. They would, there would have to be things like, you guys have to have an overlay. And either the overlay has to be something that you own, that you have license to be able to work with, or you will have to use one of our generic overlays that we have for this kind of thing. Again, designing overlays and stuff like that, I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not. But it compared to the stuff that they would have to create for things like this, creating a bunch of kind of generic overlays would kind of be child's play. Compared to the stuff that Critical Role has created and continues to create, a streaming overlay is simple. So again, they'd have to have guidelines of, hey, if you're going to do this, you have to have good quality audio, which means some sort of dedicated mic where it's not always crackling, where the volume is consistent, things like that. You would have to have people that are familiar enough with the medium that they can actually entertain people for 3 to 4 hours. So this wouldn't be something that like anyone could just go, oh, we've never played D&D before. Let's go to Critical Role and apply to make a show for them. No, there would have to be an audition style process where people would submit live play reels and things like that and go, hey, we'd like to do this. And then part of that submission process they would have to submit, okay, this is what our one shot is going to be. These are the things that we're going to use. These are the programs that we're going to be using. This is the music that we're going to be using. And there would be rules and regulations for that. Like the only thing that you can use is public domain or Creative Commons stuff or something like that to avoid having to deal with licensing issues. Like again, I'm not saying this would have been easy or simple, but with that kind of floaty, nebulous last Thursday of the month would have changed from, oh, is Critical Role streaming this month? Oh, to, oh, I can't wait to see who's going to be on this week. And it wouldn't have to be, you get one shot at this and then you're never seen from again. People that were, groups that were particularly popular could come back. I think that would be probably the healthiest thing that they could do, is they could have a few groups that would kind of regularly show up, especially since that would make things significantly easier on Critical Role side, because working with repeat people would ensure that these people already know what they're doing. They would need kind of less babysitting to make sure that they were doing things correctly and up to the quality standards that Critical Role had. And contracts and other things like that could be simplified for repeat people, things like that. So in my perfect utopian world that this was a real thing in, they would have a mixture of brand new people and people that would be returning, that the audience would come back specifically for because, oh, we really liked this group, or we really liked these players, or just something like that. Yeah, again, not only would that help indie creators just in general, but also it would create something for people to aspire to. And that's something that right now doesn't really exist in the live play scene. There's really nothing to quote unquote aspire to. There isn't this like upper echelon of, oh man, I'll make it as a TTRPG live player if I can do this or that. Nope, that's not really the thing, because the people that are in the upper echelons are completely sequestered away from the live play space. Like if we look at Critical Role does not pull from the live play space almost at all anymore. They're almost exclusively pulling people in from the voice acting space. Like any guests that you see on there almost exclusively are going to be voice actors. Now, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Critical Role are all voice actors and all their friends are voice actors and they like to work with their friends. That's not a bad thing. But when you look at when they first started, because they were on Geek and Sundry, and Geek and Sundry pulled from the larger kind of geeky community, we saw a lot of really, really cool interactions going on there. Again, they got Will Wheaton, who, yes, he is, I mean, technically a voice actor, but he, at that point, he was much better known in the tabletop community than he was for his voice acting roles. And then obviously Felicia Day and, all the cool stuff that happened there. And then eventually bringing on people like Chris Perkins and Mark Holmes and, other stuff like that. Like, it was kind of cool, but as they got bigger and bigger, they moved further and further away from the TTRPG community, and only recently with Campaign 4 have they really started kind of integrating themselves to the TTRPG community again, and that was for marketing. Which again, I have a degree in marketing. I don't think marketing is a bad thing, and I don't think what they did for Campaign Forward is a bad thing. Um, in the contrary, I believe it was a fantastic thing, not only for Critical Role, but for all these different channels that they did interviews on. Those interviews gave those channels massive, massive boosts. Some of them didn't deserve the boosts. Like, I have issues with some of the people that they did interviews with. But all of that was good. But those were all basically D&D news channels, which, again, already have an established place. And they kind of like to interact with each other already. But the live play community is basically kind of dead. And Critical Role could, I'm not saying they have to or they should or they're these evil, disgusting people but because they don't. No. They could create something to aspire to in the TTRPG community. Again, I want to say it was roleplay. Used to, I think every like 6 months or every year, would open submissions for people to submit TTRPG ideas to them. And then they would take a few of those and give them a place to run these games. And these weren't one-shots. These were, like I said, the one that I did, I think was an 8 session thing. So basically it would have lasted 2 months. But Roleplay was putting on stuff like 3 or 4 times a week on their Twitch channel. So they could have had quite a few different things and then still had their flagship shows as well. Thank you, phone. So there was kind of an aspirational thing. And there just really isn't anymore, or at least not that I see. Again, for those of you that are a little bit more involved in the live play community than I am, if there is something kind of akin to that, where there is a channel or a group of channels that likes to kind of highlight smaller indie groups, or a show that likes to bring on guest players that allows people to kind of do something outside of their circle or something like that, feel free to leave them in the links down below. Or if you believe that there are some just really, really high quality live plays out there that I just haven't seen, put the channel names in the description, or not in the description, in chat down below, and I'll look into them. But yeah, like, if this was something that Critical Role did, it would be monumental. It would be game changing for the live play community. It would massively revitalize it. It might, I'm not sure if it would ever return to what it was in like 2016, 2017. That was kind of the sweet spot where all the really amazing shit was going on. I don't know if it would return to something like that, but it definitely could do some pretty amazing things. And again, I don't think a lot of people would argue, well, that would literally be them like supporting their competition. And just like how Wizards of the Coast doesn't compete with Paizo, because Paizo will never, like, Paizo doesn't do 1% of their sales. Paizo's not a competition for D&D. It's just not. In the same way, like Critical Role, I am not competing with Critical Role in any way, shape, or form. I do 3 different live play series. One of which regularly gets double-digit numbers. Tears of the Realms, on average, we have between 12 and 20 viewers every time we stream. And if we would stream more often, we would probably have more viewers, but we have lots of busy people. And busy is hard. So, yeah, including USA Today best-selling author Kiri Callaghan, whose new book, The Hearth Witch's Guide to Magic and Murder, is available now at all major retailers. So, that being said, yeah, like I said, I think it's a massive missed opportunity for Critical Role. And like I said, this is not like a leaving money on the table thing where, all they'd have to do is this one thing and then they just rake in tons of money. To be perfectly honest, it would probably not be, it would probably cost them money at least for the first 6 months that they were doing it. For the first 6 months, it would be a money hole. Unless, again, they did a decent amount of kind of pre-work and everything. They pre-sold ads and stuff and sponsors for it, which again is very, very doable. There are people, if I didn't have a brain that hated me, I could do that for them, and I could ensure that by the time it launched, it was at least making enough money to pay for itself. But that takes a lot of work. So I'm not saying it would be easy or anything, or that it would make them shit tons of money. I don't think it would be a massive moneymaker for a direct moneymaker for Critical Role. However, the amount of goodwill it would create for them would be astonishing, and they already have a really good image. And this would still kind of elevate that to something else entirely. But also, just like D&D getting really, really popular with 5th edition has made all TTRPGs do better, and there are so many more TTRPGs that exist today that would not have existed if 5th edition had not been the smashing success that it has been. I think the same thing would be true with this independent night that Critical Role could do. It would revitalize the live play community. Again, it's kind of dying right now. If you're not Critical Role or Dropout or something similar to that, you're not making enough money to even pay your cast members, much less make any sort of a profit that you could run a business off of. It's just not something that's viable. And even things like Dropout, while Dimension 20 is a big draw for them, they equally, people are equally, if not tuning in more so for Game Changers, Make Some Noise, actually. Like, Dropout does so much more than just Dimension 20. And if they were exclusively Dimension 20, or if Dimension 20 tried to be their own company, I don't think they would survive. Because the market just doesn't exist. But if Critical Role started helping smaller channels build audiences and started making a footprint on Twitch and YouTube, and wherever else they want to go, like, that could be a really, really big deal. It would grow the market for that, which would feed back into the market. You know, people that were watching other live play shows that started getting bigger because the live play watching community was getting bigger would eventually find Critical Role. Like, you can't not. And whether or not they were watching Critical Role exclusively, like the actual campaign, or they were just watching Critical Role one-shots, or just watching the indie night, that would still help to grow Critical Role's audience eventually. But it would also help just grow the market. And yeah, it's been something for years that I don't want to say I've been upset, because it's not really upsetting as much as just, I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed. You know, the worst thing a parent can say to you, where you're just sitting there going, for the love of ground me, banish me, beat me, whatever. Just don't say you're disappointed. And that's like my biggest issue with this. And issue is a really, really strong word for this. Again, I don't think that they're evil. I don't think that they're lazy or anything like that. I think they're focusing on different things. And as we've seen, the things that they've chosen to focus on, specifically Daggerheart and Campaign 4, have been amazing. Campaign 4 has been phenomenally fun to watch. And it's only two episodes in. Daggerheart is so good. It has been so much fun to play it. It's been so much fun to watch people create things for it, and people to create live plays and stuff like that. Like, Daggerheart has kind of given a little bit of juice to the live play community, because everybody wants so much Daggerheart. But it's a tiny little shock into a dying corpse of an industry that's really just dominated by massive, massive channels. And again, Critical Role is not only well within their rights, but from a business perspective, what they're doing makes perfect sense. The idea of growing the market and possibly allowing a competitor to show up, in some business circles, it's a real bad idea, especially if you are already at the top. Generally, the people that want the market to grow are the people that want to grow into that growing market. You know, they want to grow the market so they can take over the new part. Those are the people that tend to grow markets. The people on the top generally only want the market to grow as long as it's growing with them at the top. And I don't think Critical Role views themselves in that particular way. I don't think they are particularly driven by ideas like market share and things like that. So again, this is not me shitting on Critical Role. I think they're wonderful and amazing, and I think a lot of the things that they do is really great. But this was and still is an opportunity for them to, again, because they've already done this once, change the live play market. Just completely revitalize it, change how people view it. Because once Critical Role starts doing something like that, not only does it give small creators something to aspire to, if I create a good enough product, I can eventually apply and see if I can get on Critical Role. That's a really, really big deal. But it would also give incentive for other big players in the community to do something similar. Because if it's successful for Critical Role, people will imitate it. And so we would start seeing other companies start going, well, let's try this thing. Let's see if it's possible. And again, as I mentioned before, this is not something that you can just do overnight. Like, you literally have to have a full-time position whose sole responsibility is to run this, and they probably would need their own team to be able to do it successfully. So this is not some cheap, quick thing that anybody could do. But there are companies that are large enough, and especially when you have companies like, I don't know if people quite realize this. Sam Reich, is that his name? Guy that owns Dropout. Sam Reich, first of all, is the son of one of the most successful cabinet members in modern U.S. history. He was, if I remember correctly, I think he worked in Clinton's cabinet, and he was also in a couple other presidential cabinets. I can't remember his specific position, but it was something to do with the economy and stuff like that. Sam obviously learned something from him, because the way that he runs Dropout is exceptionally well. From a business standpoint, he has a phenomenal business head on his shoulder. And this is the thing that blows my mind, he is an amazing creative. And that's not something I've said this so many times. So many creatives are so business averse and have this like extreme distaste of, business, yucky, money, we don't do that, yucky. And a lot of business people are very kind of left brain mentality, very analytical, things like that. It's extremely rare to find someone who is creative who also has a really, really good business sense, like me. People like that go one of two ways. One, their brain breaks and then they become disabled and are trapped in a fucking basement for the rest of their life. Or they do something like Sam and kind of reinvent an entire industry. Like, Dropout has done so much for what used to be the multi-channel network model and is now not. Dropout is not a multi-channel network. It will never be a multi-channel network because multi-channel networks were predatory and were useful for the time, but they screwed over so many creators. And so I fervently believe if Sam wanted to do something like this, an indie showcase style thing, Sam could pull it off because he's got the brain and the creativity to do this. And I firmly believe if Critical Role wanted to do something like this, they 100% could do it. It would cost them money, it would cost them time, and it would cost them a lot of effort. But 100% they could do something like this, and it would be massive. It would change the face of TTRPGs in the modern age. It really, really would. And so yeah, that's what's so upsetting to me is the fact that they could do this and they haven't. And again, I this is not me saying I can't believe you guys won't do this, you horrible, disgusting monsters. No, they just decided to do different things. There's nothing wrong with that. The decisions that they've made are not just viable, they're completely justified. Look at the amazing things that they have done. Daggerheart has done amazing things to the TTRPG community and will continue to do amazing things for it. Critical Role in and of itself has done amazing things, not just for TTRPGs, but for Twitch, for charity, for so many things. I'm not saying that they're committing some horrible crooked crime by not doing this. Again, this is a very, very hard thing that could blow up spectacularly. It could completely screw them over. Especially, its cancel culture is not nearly as powerful as it used to be. Excuse me, as it used to be. But if they had done this in the prime, the prime age of cancel culture, it could have killed Critical Role, because all it would have taken was for them to have an independent group on there that one activist just decided they didn't like for any reason whatsoever. And again, what happened with Feasts of Legend would have happened again. They would have been forced to apologize, which was stupid. They never should have apologized. They would have been forced to delete it from the internet, which was stupid. They never should have done that. And they were it set them back as far as sponsorships and things like that, probably a good year, because companies found out if you sponsor Critical Role, you will get attacked by their activist base. And it made them a little bit untouchable for a little while. So, yeah, again, I can totally understand them not wanting to open up that can of worms. But if they did, it would be amazing. Interested to hear from you guys. First of all, do you think what I described is even possible? Or do you think that this really is a pie-in-the-sky nonsense thing, and even Critical Role would not have been able to pull this off effectively? Let me know in the comments down below. Second of all, were this a thing? Let's pretend that tomorrow it turns into a thing. That's not possible. Let's pretend in our let's use our imagination, kids. All right, use your imagination. Tomorrow it's going to be a thing. What is a live play channel that you would love to see featured on Critical Role Indie Night or whatever it is? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.